Welcome. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on this week's Propy Weekly Webinar, where we bring to you the latest in technology and trends within the real estate industry. Today, we have excellent topics and excellent guests. Gwyneth, who do we have with us today?
Well, we are so thrilled to have Rob Hahn, who many people may know as the notorious ROB, and we have his former business partner, Sunny Lake Hahn, with us today. So we're thrilled to have you both. And you may know that Rob has quite a bit of experience. He is the managing partner at 7DS Associates, where he develops and implements corporate strategies and focuses on associations, MLSs, brokers with technology. And he has a profound love of the real estate industry, and I love that. And as you may know, he is known for challenging the status quo. And then with his consulting powers, empowers companies to operate beyond ordinary commerce. So I love that that's your focus today, and it's a perfect fit for our topic today. And also with us is Sunny, who is the operating partner in charge of brokerage management when you were with 7DS Associates. And you were just recently at Zillow as of a week ago. So that's fascinating. You've also been a licensed agent, and impressively, you've been a principal managing broker at Coldwell Banker Bain. So thank you so much for joining us today, and we're so pleased to have you.
Thanks for having us, and thanks for letting me hijack part of this as well.
And yeah, thanks for having us. I felt like, when we promoted this, we talked about strategies for offers. And I thought, okay, I've never done this, but she has. So let's bring her in. This part of her freedom tour now that she's free again.
Yeah, just like you, we do like to hear from voices from all different perspectives. So pleased to have you join us today.
Right.
If we get in a fight, I hope nobody gets uncomfortable. We do that all the time.
We do it all the time.
You got to live up to that reputation of notorious, right?
That's part of the programming here. All right, so let's get into it. We have 25 minutes left, and we want to cover a couple areas. But more importantly, we're going to change it a little differently on this week's webinar, folks. We do want to give you three things to take away. We do want to make sure we give value to the agents and brokerages. But more importantly, with Sunny and Rob here, we're going to have a little discussion on what are the challenges that are happening. Notorious Rob is, I'm going to say famous, infamous for some of his comments and blogs. Check it out, Notorious Rob. You can search him on Google. But Rob has a unique positioning of having listened to many, I would say a lot of complaints lately, but many of the challenging voices coming from agents and brokers. And I wanted to dive in there, especially around offers. What are you hearing is the trends that are not only keeping agents and brokers up at night, but what are they really getting upset with?
So I think, first of all, thank you all again for the opportunity. I think my reputation, notorious and infamous and all that, a lot of it comes from the fact that maybe some reason I got lucky enough, I think, to say things that everyone is thinking about and everyone kind of knows to be true. But for whatever reason, we don't talk about it. It's almost like impolite. We can't bring that topic up. So here's the deal, right? As far as I can tell, again, I could be wrong. And if anybody wants to argue and whatever, let's do it, because I'd like to actually do strategy based on reality. Here's what I've been hearing the last, we'll call it 6 months, but I think it's actually longer than that. I think it's more like 9, 10 months going into fall of last year. Basically, the market is breaking down, basically. So in terms of the offer process itself, what we're seeing is this insane, crazy housing market we're in is breaking down a lot of the cooperation compensation that was sort of really taken for granted forever, right? So for example, I'll just bring up a couple things. Clear cooperation policy is a real problem. It's and I say a problem, I don't mean I'm criticizing the policy. I mean the profession's, sort of the industry's response to it is problematic. Not everyone's accepting it. Not everyone's embracing it. A lot of agents and brokers are feeling like, why do I have to do this? I have all these things going on. That's number one. Number two, the other thing is just the speed of the market is making it I don't want to say impossible, but it's causing a lot of pain. Give an example. We know that there are showings in some parts of the country that are scheduled every 15 minutes, right? Like literally every 15 minutes, some new buyer walks in with his or her buyer's agent. Okay. And then the offer is due like end of that day. This is, look, it is a reality of it. And the seller and the listing agent is going to control that process. But I have to tell you, the agents and brokers who are helping the buyers they're not happy with this. They're not saying this is reasonable amount of time to make, essentially a life-changing decision, but that's the reality.
Well, and we've seen hot markets like this before, but we haven't seen, like, the showing technology is one thing that's making it a lot easier. The last time we had a hot market a few years ago, yes, you were seeing multiple offers. Yes, you were seeing a frenzy. Yes, you were seeing buyers just get fatigued and throw up their hands and say, I'm out. I'm just not going to do it. But now with the addition of technology, it's created even more expectation of everything happening so fast. And you have to be able to make a decision, right, wrong, or indifferent. You have to be able to make a decision really, really quickly with sometimes very little information and very little transparency and a lot of pressure. And if you're a first-time buyer and you're competing with institutional buyers, or just cash investors, whatever, that technology on top. And I'm not saying technology is bad. I love technology, but it's just adding another layer of speed to that expectation and causing even more pressure on buyers.
Okay, so
let me bring up a final thing, which is, and then as a result of all of these trends, there's starting to be, I don't know what to call it. I don't know if I want to call it paranoia. I don't know if I want to call it emotional, I don't know what to call it, but basically starting to be a lot of suspicion from buyer agents that their offers are not even being presented to the seller, right? That they don't know why they're rejected. They don't know, do you know what I mean? Like there's no evidence, there's no reason to think that, so-and-so listing agent screwing me out or anything like that. It's just because of the pressure, the speed, the volume. I mean, think about the number of offers that are coming in within 24 hours on some of the listings. So there's starting to be, I think, tension, maybe is the right way to put it. So I would say those three are the main things that are happening kind of because of this insane, crazy market we're in.
So, Sonny, as an agent with the technology today, I as a buyer, I know a showing's coming up. I'm looking at the virtual tour. I went to, apparently there's a
emergency,
Amber Alert emergency in my area.
It's also like a tornado warning headed to your room, I think.
Yeah, not here in California.
That can cover.
Maybe the earthquake. But I get the virtual tours, right? I go on to my Zillow, Realtor.com. I get all the images of the home. I get all the specs. I get everything there. And as a buyer paying amounts of money in California, there's an amount of due diligence that's on me to look. And the showing really is that last bit to confirm any questions that I have. Is that how agents are treating it today? To where are they right? For Rob's point, that, all right, you've done your due diligence. You had days up to it. You now get that face-to-face. Why can't you make an offer by the end of the day? Because I got 30 people making an offer and I'm closing that deadline on, 12 p.m. Monday morning.
Well, I mean, you can weed a lot of things out by looking at virtual tours and pictures. Like the trash will take itself out sometimes when you're using all of the technology to weed things out, but you still want to walk through. But when it comes down to it, it's still a really emotional process and it's still a lot of money, which adds just another layer of emotion to it.
Yeah.
So yes, having that expectation of an agent having that expectation with the buyers or potential buyers, that yes, time is of the essence. And yes, the listing agent is working for the seller and the seller has their set of parameters that they want. But buyers still ultimately have to make that decision and have to be able to pull the trigger. Some of them are able to do that. Some of them are not. Some of them say, okay, this house might be a little bit of a stretch. I need to talk to my lender to see if I can make the numbers work or see if I can scrape together some more money for a down payment because right now I'm not going to get there. So yes, technology can help, but there still is that level of emotion that is just intensified by the pressure and the time.
Let me add one thing, and I'll kind of dispute a little bit here, which is yeah, you're right. Technology can help, and you're exactly right that that a lot of folks, virtual tours, data that's available now, they can do it. The problem is with, again, in certain markets, not every market, but in certain markets, and I think growing number of them, you don't have the time. In other words, if you get an alert, new listing on market at noon on a Friday, right? You don't have 3 days to sit and like really investigate, look at the neighborhoods. You don't, because by 6 p.m. that day, there might be 14 offers on that house.
Yeah, and your agent says, oh, by the way, we can see it in this 15-minute window.
Correct.
Hopefully you can make it.
Correct. And oh, by the way, if you have, say, like an appraisal contingency in your offer, don't even bother because it's not going to fly. You have to waive all contingencies and bid over asking and bring a ton of cash to the table. Otherwise, why even bother? If that's the environment we're in, and I think in a lot of markets, that's exactly the environment we're in, then all of the sort of promise of technology of being able to do the due diligence, all that stuff is out the window. And buyers are feeling this enormous pressure of, oh my God, I basically have to buy this sight unseen. I mean, 15-minute tour, it's technically not sight unseen. I'm gonna sort of push back on that. That's about as close to sight unseen as you could possibly get.
And that's if you pay.
So Rob, I'll come back in another way. So you feel as a buyer, although I have ability to use technology, I'm now giving a short time frame. I'm now questioning whether or not they showed a couple other favorite people ahead of time, and I'm just being allowed in for my 10 minutes.
Correct.
So they can check off that it was a fair process. But in reality, as a buyer not being successful in 5, 10 chances, I'm now feeling this isn't a transparent process. Is that what you're hearing?
That's exactly what's happening, I think. And again, the tension that's starting to rise, and this is, talking to MLSs, associations, franchises, brokers, teams, and again, I'm not saying I'm 100% right across the board. This is just my impression based on what I'm hearing. If you have a company, right, for example, that puts in it, so an agent goes out and gets a listing, right? And it gets put in as an office exclusive, okay, or as which is allowed under clear cooperation. So it can only be shared within that brokerage company for a week. And then it hits the market, right? And then 24 hours later, there's an offer that's been accepted and under contract. If I'm a buyer's agent outside of that, I'm looking at it, there could be all sorts of legitimate, innocent, everything was done right, explanation for it. But I got to tell you, that is not how they feel. They feel like something happened. Some deal was made behind the scenes. I wasn't part of it. My buyers couldn't even access that property. And it was just sold out, and that's the tension.
Yeah, or that, sure, you can come see it, but they do already have an offer that they're basically accepting, unless one comes in for like hundreds of thousands over. We have this offer that's accepted. So we're not really looking at other offers, but we're pretending like we're looking at other offers. I mean, there is technology that can make it a more transparent process, which Propy has available. But then there's also like not technology, where I used to advise my agents, if your seller is not accepting that offer, have them write not accepted, sign and date the top. So the buyer's agents know that the seller at least put eyes on that offer and knew that so yes, there is technology, but there's also just old school. Like, you can still do the right thing and people can still feel like they had a fair shot. But it's buyers just don't feel like they're getting a fair shot in a lot of cases.
And to the transparency point, I mean, so I speak to friends of mine who are not in the industry, right? They're just average American, people trying to buy a home. And one of the biggest frustrations they have is they don't know why they lost. Right? They just know they lost the bid. They don't know why. They don't know if it was I overbid? Was it because of cash? Was it because of some contingency that was in my offer that wasn't in the winning offer? They don't know why they lost. And part of this, I think, is, and again, I don't know what the right answer might be an auction system. I don't know. But part of it is, I can't believe I lost by that amount. Why didn't somebody tell me and give me an opportunity to out,
like what? They only beat me by $5,000.
Right.
I would have paid $5,000. I would have paid $7,500, 10 grand, whatever more, had I known.
Right. And then they blame the agent. Like, why didn't you advise me? And the agent's like, I had no idea somebody's gonna come in 25,000 over asking. Like, it's just causing a lot of problems. And, and there's a question in the chat, and I think this kind of leads to What we got to talk about.
And I'll read I'll get to the question in a minute, but to set up the one prior.
Yeah.
How would the industry look? I mean, how would the questions come to you, Rob, if the question came back and the agent wrote in the rejection note, sorry, you were 5,000 under. And then they immediately put an offer in 6,000. And then the agent sends somebody else, sorry, you're 1,000 under. And then it goes back and forth. Wouldn't the buyer still have a sense of non-transparency because they could feel that they're being tooled to jack the price up?
Yeah, those are, the old escalation clauses. I'll go up by this much up to this certain point, and you just get in this horse race, and it's like at some point somebody's got to say uncle, or someone just has to win.
But here's
which is in play in Virginia and other places right now, Sonny. They're coming back, but that didn't serve to be a good thing when we had it before.
Yeah, no, escalations are.
What I don't understand is why in types of markets like this, why we don't go to auction models much more often. Right.
Okay. Put a note there as how many agents out there, send us some feedback. Would you prefer an auction? There's challenges on auctions, right? Especially if you're a first time buyer or other areas that may be counterproductive to, a lot of the millennials out there today. So,
but here's the thing: millennials been using eBay since the time they were born.
Right? Yeah. Well, no, they'll understand.
At a minimum, if you see,
that's for shoes. That's different.
No, but all I'm saying is, at least you can see. Look, this is the argument, right? Is hey, here's my offer, and I'm the winning bid right now. Oh, look, here's one that came in above, and it's by 3,000. Okay, I can beat that. And then there's one that comes above that. It's like, okay, it's 2,000 more, and it's all cash. I can't compete with that. I know I'm out. But at least a buyer doesn't feel like somehow some nefarious backroom deal happened and my agent's not part of that network, and at least we don't have that problem, right? At least. Okay,
so Rob's question on the previous information to him was about transparency. Right. Are they really selling it before it comes to a showing and an open? Okay, could the auction take care of that? Could they still? Okay, that's one avenue. There was a question from the panelists for you, Rob. From technology, what you heard. This is from attendee Joel. With the volume offers that we have experienced in the last several months, but certainly over the last few years, why hasn't the real estate industry embraced an offer management platform? Shouldn't the focus be on making the offer process seamless and reducing the friction?
Seems like the obvious answer is yes, of course it should be.
Leading the witness.
I know. Really.
No, I mean, it is. It does seem natural that people, the industry would want to embrace a fair and transparent process for offers. I mean, that seems like it doesn't even need an argument, but
yeah.
I say to Rob a lot, inertia is a powerful force. People don't naturally just love changing. And so usually it takes some time for change to happen. Usually there's some sort of impetus for change to happen. Maybe this market is the impetus for that change to happen. But it's one of those things. It's hard. It's hard to change. It's hard to adopt. It's hard for people to want to learn one more platform. I mean, I had 70 agents when I was a broker, and I'm like, come on, guys, give it a shot. Yeah. And yeah, as managing brokers, it's hard to get people to adopt things unless you have employee agents, which I could talk about for days.
So look, it's leading the witness in a sense in that, of course, we all agree that, the focus should be making things easier, making things more transparent, reducing friction. Of course, that's all true. In terms of answer to the why the industry hasn't embraced it, I don't know. You're going to have to go ask the decision makers at the industry level. What I can say about that, though, and what I'll offer, and this is just from brokers and agents, everyone listening, for you guys at Propy to think about is, what is the incentive if I'm a broker or agent to embrace an offer management platform? What does it get me? And right now, honestly, it's not clear.
Trust.
Right? Yeah, I mean, it's more efficient, but, maybe that doesn't allow some of the, people out there in the marketplace to feel like they have more control over the process. In other words, I don't think it's reasonable to expect that every person in the industry behaves like an angel. We're all human beings. We're all going to do things. And it could be that some of them do want to direct, properties to their friends, to their network. It may be that some brokers do want to keep all of that in-house as long as possible. I mean, there's lots of incentives built in to do things like that. So if an offer management platform comes in and it really removes that ability and it makes things, okay, better for consumers, more transparent, all that. But like, what's my incentive to do that? And I don't know that we've got that lined up right now, as things are in the industry.
Yeah, we've spent a lot of time lately talking about the misalignment of incentives in the industry at all different levels. But those are conversations that we have at home all the time.
So I think the way it's going to play out is natural evolution, meaning the brokers and the agents who embrace an offer management platform gain a competitive advantage, and they end up getting more clients, doing more deals, and making more money. That's when I think everybody else says, I have to have that platform as well. I mean, it's going to be the same thing with transaction management, CRM, any technology that's ever been adopted broadly by the industries, because it ends up in a competitive advantage, which allows that broker, that agent to go out and get more deals. I mean, I think that's what we're going to have to see. I think right now, it's not, I don't know that that's quite there.
Well, and I've heard a couple things in there, and just for the audience, and Gwyneth and I are not commenting on the offer management, because Propy absolutely does have an offer management platform that solves that. But we want to actually bring you more talk about what's going on in the industry. What are your fellow agents having challenges? If you would like to look at Propy's offer management, go to propy.com, click on offer management, and you'll see a transparent system that marks date and time stamps and sends automatic notifications to the listing agent when an offer comes in. When the offer is viewed, the buyer agent gets a text notification, and ultimately the buyer and the seller as well. But I wanted to go back to the buyer and seller, Sonia and Rob.
Okay.
A lot of this, and I'm not going to get into the agent's compensation, but building sales teams for most of my career, you all know, you change the compensation, you change behavior.
Absolutely.
And maybe that is where the evolution Rob was talking about. But let's go to the buyer and the seller. At the end of the day, isn't a better experience for the buyer and seller really what should be driving? I mean, isn't that what opened the door for a Realtor.com and a Zillow? And have we not learned anything about concentrating on the buyer and seller?
Gosh, I've been in this industry since 2003, and in the market that I was in when I started, people still carried around the book. That was not even 20 years ago, and people still carried around that book. And they were like, nope, I don't trust that internet. I'm like, oh my God, we were still running classified newspaper ads when I took over the office as a managing broker. And that was in, 14, 15, something like that. Still running classified ads. Tell me how this is a good experience, but also, my God, again, inertia is really a powerful force, and people have a hard time changing. They're like, our clients want to see their house in the newspaper. I'm like, your clients don't care about seeing their house in the newspaper. They want to see it on Zillow and Realtor.com and all of the other websites. Like, they want to see it there where everybody else is looking and where their friends and kids are pulling it up on their phone. Nobody's walking into your open house with the newspaper tucked under their arm with the open houses. Nobody's doing that.
Not anymore.
I mean, but 6 years ago, they weren't either. So it was, it's just hard to change, but always looking at what's best for the consumer should be everyone's focus.
But here's the thing. I'm much more optimistic long-term from a, if you will, the industry standpoint, but it's not a type of optimism that's real popular. Okay, here's what I mean. The industry is going to evolve to be much more buyer and seller focused. Whether that evolution happens because we, the industry, the brokers, the agents, the associates, the MLS embrace that point of view and really start acting that way, or because an outside third-party company comes in with a focus on buyer and sellers, that because we apparently don't give a crap, and they force it on us and put a lot of us out of business, one way or the other, it's going to end up being better for buyers and sellers, being more transparent, being less friction. It just is. And if NAR or MLS stand in the way of that, then they're going to go away, because the world is not made up of real estate agents and MLS and associates. There are lots of governments have power, companies have power, And ultimately, we're going to all end up doing what's in the best interest and what's going to make it easier and smoother and more efficient for buyers and sellers. So to me, you're exactly right, Joe. Like, we have to actually really think about that and really focus on it. And if we don't, then, don't complain.
Lawmakers are going to.
Yeah, don't bitch and whine because somebody else has done that and is going to come in and eat your lunch. In a real way, I feel like I think the analogy to like Uber and taxi drivers makes a ton of sense to me. Like, if you're a taxi driver 5 years ago, whatever, 6 years ago, and you just thought, you know what, this Uber thing, it's not going to make that big a difference. How you feeling now, right? And I really do kind of feel like we were in that position where all of us, me, I make my money off this industry too, and I love this industry. There's so many great people in it. All I'm saying is we actually have to stop looking at kind of, the short-term interests or what our control things might be, this, and really just think about what you brought up, which is how does this ultimately impact the buyer and the seller?
So with that, let's take a look, and I'll use Sonny's, example of 5 or 6 years ago. All right. So in 5 years from now, we know there's going to be an evolutionary change in the real estate industry. Maybe it happens in 2 or 3 years based off Moore's law, and we'll speed that up. Mm-hmm. So 3 years from now, it's going to be different. So if I'm still an agent and I'm not planning on retiring in the next 3 to 5 years, you're telling me I better do something.
Yeah.
Where do you think it would go? What does it look like?
I do think that there's going to be a lot more transparency for buyers and sellers. I think that this is going to, gosh, I'm going to make some people mad. But industry, I love you. The industry is going to have to step back and get out of the way a little bit. I mean, they like to be gatekeepers of a lot of information. That's going to have to change a little bit because consumers are empowered with a ton of information. They want someone to help advise them on how to like narrow that information down, what is relevant, what isn't. But any sort of feeling of gatekeeping from the industry, consumers are going to push back on hard. So I think industry professionals just need to kind of take more of an advisory role and say, hey, you're the hero here. I'm the guide. Like, I'm just guiding you. You're the hero of this journey. You consumer, I am your guide that's back here. I don't need to be the star of the show. I think that's going to have to change. And I think it's going to have to change quickly.
Yep.
Well said. Love it.
All right. And that brings me up another thought from what I've seen in other industries, right? The role changes.
Yeah.
With the nature, when internet came and then the smartphone, consumers have the data at their fingertips. They just need a sounding board, someone to guide, to help assure that is the right decision based off the requirements and what we set up ahead of time. Is that where the agent now comes into play?
I do. I think so. I think it's helping distill the information down because there is so much information and you can get paralyzed with all of it. So you do need someone who can help you just narrow, like keep your focus where it needs to be, help push the noise and the distractions out of the way and keep you focused, but also let the consumer be the lead. Like, this is my house. This is my journey that I am on. I need your help. But again, this is, at the end of the day, this is where I'm going to live with my family, invite my friends over. This is where I'm going to have my life. And yes, I appreciate you, but still, like, me as the consumer needs to be that central focus.
Got it. Okay. Normally we'll end at 1:30, but I'm going to ask, can you guys stay on 10 minutes? Because there's a part of Rob's second question that of the complaints he was getting. Sure. And that is a little bit more about the transparency. Was it done under the table? Do I, as a buyer, because I'm going to stay with the buyer side experience here. Did I feel I was treated fair? Was this a fair process? Did I really have a shot?
Yep.
How are Rob, where are you hearing some of the agents? I mean, what can be done? How, because not all agents are like that.
Right.
I mean, and I'd probably say there's very few. Right. But perception, very few can ruin it for the whole industry.
Absolutely. And plus, like, let's not forget, like, this is an industry of competitors who cooperate. right? So there's always the suspicion of like, am I getting blacklisted? There's always suspicion like, am I in the right crowd? There's always that suspicion. It's weirdly like high school, right? But having said that, I mean, from the buyer standpoint, I do think this is going to become a real live issue very, very quickly. And if we don't solve it in the industry, then it will become a real live issue politically, right? In other words, imagine all these families, all these individual buyers feeling like I put in a dozen offers and I got none of them accepted and I have no idea why, right? It's all transparent. And then I find out because, at some point it's going to come out, the media there's starting to report, I find out that it was office exclusive deal and it was sold to a cash investor who happens to be BlackRock. I'm telling you, the political impacts of something like that on the society and the buyers, emotion and how they feel about the industry is going to completely out of control. Like so I would immediately be calling my congressman, like, you need to get these realtors under control. They're hiding the ball and they're playing games and the game is rigged. And like, that's the fear, that's the danger we're facing because of this insane housing market, because of the economy, because all the problems.
Buyers are already saying the game
is rigged. Right. So
they're already starting to say the game is rigged.
So yeah. So to some extent, I feel like this is not a long-term 5-year type of initiative. This is a short-term 1 to 3 year. Like we have to get transparency out to the public, right? We have to. And this is not just something, I don't know. Like I said, if we don't do that, then it's going to be forced on us.
All right, we're going to save that, and I'd like to have you both on in about 4 to 6 weeks on that topic alone, because I agree with you. If we don't adjust and find ways to make it more transparent for the buyer and the seller, and be upfront, legislature will do it for us. And that generally does not go well.
That's right, because those guys don't know how
they come in with a chainsaw.
Like a scalpel is what you need, but they come in with a chainsaw.
Absolutely. So that's the options. Well, Sonny, Rob, it was great having you on.
Pleasure.
Gwen, thank you very much. And for our audience, thank you for joining us. Join us next week with Terrence Murphy, who will be talking about acing the real estate market game and winning every time. We're going to get back to 3 important rules for success. Join us next Wednesday at this time on Propy's weekly webinar. Thank you very much and have a good day.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Sonny.